Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at some of the best builds you can make in Title Update 4, specifically focusing on the hammer. As for the builds, we're going to have our main set of course, an alternative set which is basically an offset focused build that uses Powerhouse instead of antivirus, for people who prefer that playstyle, and then lastly we're going to have yet another set that's going to be a bit more of a comfort build, since it makes use of focus and earplugs. So lots of builds with lots of variation, but in addition to all of that, I have also included a perfect charm and craftable charm version of all of these builds. So you can still make all of these builds regardless of your charm luck. But before we get into the builds, I want to quickly mention that if you would like to get access to my builds and future builds before I make videos on them, you can get access to absolutely everything in the build section of my Discord server. Links everywhere. Now the first thing you need to know about the builds is going to be the weapon itself. So your ideal hammer is going to be one that has both Gogmazios Tyranny and Lord Soul as the active skills, but there are definitely some situations where you would want to use something else instead, such as Gogma's Might. This is what all of your ideal reinforcement bonuses will look like. You want to make sure you're going with the attack focus, and for the element you ideally want to match your element to the monster's weakness, but if you're only going to make one element, then I'm going to recommend you go with Dragon, since it's the most applicable to the Gogmazios fight. Getting into the first build, we have our main set, and to make this one you're going to need a hammer with both Gogmazios Tyranny and Lord Soul as the active skills. For the armor, it's going to be the Guardian Fulgur Engine Dahaad Beta Transcended, Nuuja Chest Gamma, Gogmazios Arms Alpha, Gogma Waist Alpha, Jin Dahaad Legs Gamma, and I'm using this charm here, along with all of these decorations. So this is going to be your main set. It's generally going to be the best option for pretty much all of the content in the game, and there's really not much else to say about it, but it is worth noting that if you're not a fan of Adrenaline Rush, you can actually swap that for Flare, and you'll notice that it can actually be a bit better for certain monsters. It really depends on what you're fighting. Getting into the math, it's going to be 257 base raw, increased by 5% for guts, and an additional 4% for attack boost, giving us 280. Once we add our flat damage skills on top of that, we then get up to 341. With white sharpness, that's 450, so once we account for our affinity and critical boost, we get a grand total of 595 EFR, or 613 EFR on charged attacks. Moving on to the craftable charm version of the build, to make this one you're going to need a hammer with both Gogmazios Tyranny and Lord Soul, yet again. The armor is going to be the Dahaad Gamma, Nuuja Chest Gamma, Gogmazios Arms Alpha, Guardian Fulgur Engine Dahaad Waist Beta Transcended, Gogma Legs Alpha, and the Challenger Charm 3, plus all of these decorations. So this build is very similar to the original version. We still have all of the same armor skills and set bonuses. The only real difference is we lose all of our attack boost, while gaining one critical eye and one agitator instead. The damage output on this one is of course a little bit lower as a result, but not by too much, as you'll see when we look at the math. Getting into the math, for this one it's going to be 257 base raw, increased by 5% for guts, giving us 269. With our flat damage skills that becomes 324. White sharpness then turns that into 428. So once we account for our affinity and critical boost, that becomes a total of 576 EFR, or 594 EFR on charged attacks. Next up we had the Powerhouse build, and to make this one you're going to need a hammer with both Gogma's Might and Lord Soul as the active skills. For the armor, you're going to need the Guardian Fulgur Engine Dahaad Beta Transcended, Nuuja Chest Gamma, Gogmazios Arms Alpha, Uthduna Waist Gamma, Gogmazios Legs Alpha, and a charm like this one. These are all of the decorations you'll need to make this set. So this is going to be your offset build. It's quite similar to the main set, except we're not using any Frenzy Virus shenanigans. Instead, we're relying on doing an offset every now and then to keep Powerhouse active for its attack buff, which is honestly pretty easy, because you can reactivate the skill while it's already active, and it lasts for 3 minutes. Moving on to the math, we have 257 base raw, increased by 5% for guts, giving us 269. Flat damage skills to bring that up to 334, with white sharpness that's 442, or with our affinity and critical boost, a total of 579 EFR, or 596 EFR on charged attacks. As for the craftable charm version of the set, to make this one you're going to again need a hammer that has both Gogma's Might and Lord Soul. The armor is going to be the Dahaad Gamma, Nuuja Chest Gamma, Gogmazios Arms Alpha, Guardian Fulgur Anjanath Waste Beta Transcended, Gogmazios Legs Alpha, and the Challenger Charm 3, along with all of these decorations. So just like all of the other Craftable Charms sets, we have to make a sacrifice somewhere, which with this set just happens to be quite a bit of affinity due to losing 4 points of Critical Eye. We do manage to get some of that back by picking up the last level of Agitator, but that can only go so far. Ultimately, this set's damage is still pretty decent, but it is a bit on the lower side of the sets in this video. For the math, it's going to be 257 base raw, increased by 5% for guts, giving us 269. With flat damage skills, that's 337. After white sharpness, that's 445. So once we account for our affinity and critical boost, that's a total of 562 EFR, or 579 EFR on charged attacks. Getting into the comfort set, for this one we're going to need a hammer with both Gogmazios Journey and Lord's Soul once again. For the armor you'll need the Raidao Head Gima, Uja Chest Gima, Gogmazios Arms Alpha, Gogmazios Waist Beta, Guardian Fulgur Anjanath Legs Beta Transcended, and I'm using this charm here. Here are all of the decorations you'll need to make this set. So this build is going to be great for anyone who actually wants to use some comfort skills. You have focus to speed up your charge attacks quite a bit, plus you also have earplugs to allow you to attack through most of the roars in the game, which should make getting a couple KOs on each of the monsters you hunt quite easy. Also, despite squeezing in the comfort skills, this set still has really great damage output as well. Looking at the math, it's going to be 257 base raw, increased by 5% for guts, giving us 269. With our flat damage skills added on top of that, we then get up to 315. With white sharpness, that's 416. So with our affinity and critical boost, we're looking at a total of 572 EFR. Moving on to the Craftable Charm version of the build, to make this one you'll once again need that hammer with Gogmazios Journey and Lord's Soul. For the armor, it's going to be the Raidao Head Gima, Uja Chest Gima, Gogmazios Arms Alpha, Guardian Fulgur Anjanath Waist Beta Transcended, Gogmazios Legs Beta, and the Exploiter Charm 2, plus all of these decorations. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, the damage output on this set isn't the greatest. It falls behind all of the other sets in this video by quite a lot, and I wouldn't recommend using it, unless you really want to play this build and can't make it any better. But even in that situation, I would highly recommend trying to get a better charm for this set, since the Craftable Charm on this one really holds back its damage potential. Getting into the math, we once again have 257 base raw, which gets increased by 5% for guts, giving us 269. Flat damage skills then turn that into 315. White sharpness bumps that up to 416. So after accounting for our affinity and critical boost, we get a total of 545 EFR. So those are all of the best hammer builds that I recommend you be using in Title Update 4. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next video.